Hello, everybody. How's everyone? It's raining, windy and raining in Montreal tonight. Perfect night for a live show on radio. So, Voice of Vietnam 7315. If you want to listen to Voice of Vietnam, starting on 7315 with a really good signal in Montreal via WHRI. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to this. I'm just looking if everything's all right. Seems okay. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Shortwave live show, the show where we talk about radio, and that includes mostly, but not just exclusively, anything from 0 to 30 megahertz. And it's a show that we have twice a week. So this is a show that is on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. That's 0 hours Universal Time. We also have a Friday show at 20 hours UTC. That's 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And of course, hope you enjoy our shows. We talk about radio. They have no. Somebody asked me, he said, "Oh, what's the length? You seem to do 3 hours, or there's no official length of time. So it can last an hour. It can last. Well, the record is what 5 hours and 30 minutes. So it depends on what's to talk about. If I'm tired or not. Do you have something to add, or do you want to continue? Are we having fun? And it's a mix of all sorts of things together. You gotta. Somebody was telling me the other day, says, "Oh, it's sad sometimes when you do 2 hours." But I say, put yourself in my place. Sit down in front of a microphone and a camera, and talk for 3 hours, and come back at me and tell me how you did, because I can tell you, it's something that you have to constantly do something. I got to constantly talk. Basically, I got to constantly interact because I can't just sit here and I don't think that's going to be a good show. So, you gotta be in there. You got to hang in there. You got to be always constant in trying to find something to talk about. You got to be constant in everything. And, I got a few guys out there that are doing live shows that talk to me from time to time on YouTube. And, in different, not radio stuff, but a couple of guys in other that do radio, like live shows for other content, and one of them is a tech content. And he was telling me once, he said, I don't know how you do it. I go an hour and a half, and I just don't know what to say anymore. And I just, and I even have some people sometimes say, well, you know what? I tried to do a live show, and after 15 minutes, I just freeze. And I have no idea what to talk about. And it's I probably have a talent on that side for sure. Because, if it wouldn't be from that, I don't think I would do 3 hours of radio. And, the subject is something that I kind of love. It's something that I really, really find, it's a big passion of mine. It's been there for, 30-some years, 37 years. 1982 is when it all started. So you got to thank my dad, and you got to thank the fact that I fell in my head first into radio when I was 13 years old, because without that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here at all. And you can thank my dad for another thing also, is the computer side of things with the VIC-20 and everything. Would I be doing these live shows? Would I be doing this technical stuff if it wasn't for all of that together? I don't know. I always say that you gotta show your children the maximum amount of coolness of stuff of technology of all sorts. Because the more you show your kids, the more they'll find something that is a big passion of them. Maybe it can actually totally change the path into what they will do in life. And of course, the best way to keep them out of trouble, yeah, just entertain them with something that's kind of cool. Shortwave radio or whatever, it's not just shortwave radio. You guys see it all the time. When we talk about the fact that we geek out and that a lot of people find us really weird, I'm pretty sure that throughout the stream, there are people that stumble upon the stream and say, hey, I'm going to look at what that guy is doing. And they stay here for 2 minutes and they're like, what the hell is that boring thing he's doing there? Yeah, well, it's radio. It's shortwave radio, and we talk about that. And, it's not for everybody. I mean, we all obviously have our own experience of, I have somebody that I was showing radio, and he was yawning the whole way, It's like, yeah, wow, that looks cool. Yeah, looks really good. And, and all the stories. You guys have stories from time to time. We share some of those. And it's kind of, that's the way we are. And, here you find a place where we are all welcome, where we are all the same, where we all do the radio stuff. And you know what? It's cool that at some point something happened and I decided, hey, let's try a live show and see what it does and how it goes. It's kind of cool. Of course, my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and that is the northeast part of North America. We, of course, like I said in the beginning of the show, have 2 shows a week. We talk about radio. Sometimes we go above 30 megahertz, but we try to keep it 30 megahertz or below. But any radio thing is interesting. We, of course, have a beautiful chat room that is wonderful with amazing people. And you can actually join in. All you need is a Gmail account to be able to join in and say hello. And talking of hello, I just had a email from Elizabeth that's watching from Regina. And she says, hey, Gilles, it's fun to have this live show once again tonight. It's really entertaining, and it's just great to tune around and have fun with you guys. You guys are such a great gang. Every time that somebody mentions or says hi to me, I feel like I'm part of a family. And, that's the thing. And thanks, Elizabeth, for showing up and saying hello. She showed up, of course, through email, which is officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. And she, of course, loves to say hello. And, everybody says hello back because, this is what this is, I was talking about the Facebook group, because once again, we have a Facebook group. If you are here and you want to kind of have a extension of what here is a live show, and we tune around and we have all sorts of things happening and talk about radio. But if you want an extension of all of this, if you want an extension of having fun with radio, well, the Facebook group, which has the same name as the YouTube channel, which is official SWL channel, and we just have a great fun there, posting your radios, what you like, what you do, what your shack looks like. Even if you have one radio, just post whatever picture of that radio. Any radio is a radio, and it's cool. I from time to time I do get someone that's just gonna pop up and say, well, you know what, I only have this little Texan cheap radio, and I'm kind of, I don't want to show it because, I'm kind of like, I see you guys with all these big gun radios, and no, don't think like that ever, ever, ever. That little Texan radio, that little receiver you have, it could be an old analog that you have from the 50s. It doesn't matter. If you're using it and you're having fun with it, it's a radio, and we want to see it, and we want to actually, see what you're doing and what you're listening to. It's just great. It doesn't matter if you got a $20 radio or a $20,000 radio. It doesn't matter here. This is not what it's all about. This is listening to the radio and having fun listening to the radio. And that's all. The rest, you know what? Be happy with what you have, because it's the only thing you got to listen to. And you got to use it, and you got to use it to the best of your abilities. And, there's a little tips and tricks you might find on the channel or find here that is actually going to help out. And maybe you'll learn how to listen to even more signals. So, I'd rather have a $20 radio that works all the time than a $20,000 radio. And God knows there's a lot of those out there with, 5 or 10 grand radios that aren't being turned on more than once a year or something, Yeah, it's really nice to see that $10,000 radio on your shelf. It's just sad that it never turns on, It's like just a decoration in your living room. Useless, honestly. You might find that it's cool to have that looking radio. I find it actually much cooler if you turn it on and use it. That is cool. There's so much to be done. So welcome everybody. It's really cool to have everyone here. And the chat room is nice. The Facebook group is beautiful. Remember, if you join the Facebook group, please answer the questions. If you don't answer any questions, you will be rejected. And I will actually ask every moderator out there, no questions answered, rejection. I would also add one thing. If you invite somebody, don't invite them directly. That will be a rejection. Tell them, oh, you like radio? There's a Facebook group. Come and join us. If the person makes the effort to join us, that is worth it to have that happening. If the person is invited because you think maybe they could be interested in it, it's not the same value, because, being invited is not the same thing as asking for being a part of the channel. So, you know what? You got a friend that you think might be interested? What you should do is simply tell that friend, there's a great, you listen to the radio, there's a great group, that guy, which is official SWL channel Facebook group. And you should join in. And if he does, cool. And once again, you got to answer the questions. If you don't, I'm sorry. We can't accept you. Okay? There's a minimum of effort to be done. I noticed that a lot of people don't click the I agree with the rules. I've let it go through with a lot of you because obviously some I know and some answer the radio questions. That I agree only asks one thing of you when you click I agree on the Facebook group. It just asks you to agree with the rules of the group. And the rules of the group are very simple. To be polite, to be a good person, to not bully anyone, to make everybody feel always welcome, and to just geek out with your radios and post radio stuff. And that's it. Nothing more. I'm not asking to, see what the color of your underwear is and write me a check for $5,000. I'm just asking you to be polite and be a good person. That's it. I notice a lot of you don't click the I agree with the rules. And, it's okay when, I use my gut feeling when that happens. But, it's just a formality of, you are agreeing to being a great person on this group. It's all that I'm asking when you click I agree to the Facebook group and nothing else. It's not, a Facebook agreement. It's a group agreement of just being a good person. And that's all we want. And that's all we ask for. And, of course, no bullying, and any idiot, any person that does not abide even a little to the rules is immediately rejected on that place, okay? I will not accept, and it's a 0. I mean, even one blunder and you're out. I'm telling you, it's as simple as that. Only one, you're out. So, talking about chat rooms and people and having fun, of course, we are going to greet our audience. I have my first beer is a Fin du Monde, so cheers, everybody. And by the way, good signal from Voice of Vietnam, 7315, from WHRI. Bobby Burgess, nice to have you here. WA5107 SWL, Morgan City, Louisiana. Simplio, nice to have you here. We have, so Simplio's from Oklahoma City. Bullfrog, KD2CXU, nice to have you on board. Home for Thanksgiving, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys in the U.S. Here in Canada was last month. The Expeditions, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Faslow, nice to have you on board from Montreal. G. Lyle, nice to have you here from Southern Illinois. WA9211 SWL. 6115 Fastload is WWCR, Nashville, Tennessee. Rufus Newt, nice to have you on board from Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Yes, new glasses, absolutely, my friend. New glasses. It's not just feels good, but I read better. Trimbali, Mr. Bell, nice to have you here. Ding Dong, nice to have you on board, my friend. Of the Dawn, nice to have you on board. WF7I Homebrew, nice to have you on board. Good evening. Thank God it's Wednesday. We usually see TGIF. We don't often see TGIW. Thank God it's Wednesday. But with the Thanksgiving, it could be nice because for you guys, it's like a Friday. You guys are off tomorrow. So, it's like a Friday today. Garden Treadwell, nice to have you on board. Garden VE6GPT, nice to have you on board. Max Strong, nice to have you on board from Michigan. Mickey Dalmage, nice to have you on board. Good news, 13750 Radio Thailand booming in. Let's try it out. 13750. Do I hear anything? And there is a very, very weak carrier here on 13750, so forget it. 11780. So here, it's interesting how, you're in Alberta, Canada. Here, Radio Nacional Amazonas in Brazil is really powerful tonight. S9 plus 20 at peaks. Really strong Brazil, 11780. And it's interesting that you in your neck of the woods are getting CRI, China, over it. Really crazy. The F7I says, I would think my voice would get hoarse after 3 hours of talking. Bolin191, my top 3 preachers on Shortwave. None of them, because I don't listen to any of them. Max Strong says, honestly, I think even an hour or two would be cool. Well, we do what we do. I go with the flow. And when it's out, it's out. Dave Belisle, nice to have you here. WA1UJA in New Hampshire. Brent in Brockville, Ontario. Nice to have you on board. Terry Cook, KF7BQ in Missoula, Montana. Tech Guy, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Happy New Year to all of you in the United States. Oh, God. John Ritson, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Chris Alpha Tango, nice to have you here, my friend. Yes, we are crazy fans of radio. Northern Dawn, nice to have you on board. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, of course. Here in Canada, tomorrow's a regular day. Mr. Lucky Train, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. Says happy Thanksgiving Eve to all your listeners in USA. Remember that after you feast on that turkey and trimmings tomorrow, be certain to get out and take a brisk walk. Make sure. Simplio says it's fun being weird. Yeah, why not? Brent's still recovering from a wicked virus. Well, take it easy, my friend. Take it easy. Really nice to have everybody here. What else do we have? Tech Guy says we get lost in our passband sometimes. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. Page Master, nice to have you on board. Corky Paul, nice to have you on board. Thank you very much. Sorry, guys. Rufus Newt and Terry Cook saying hi, Elizabeth. Brent saying hi, Elizabeth. Tech Guy, Northern Dawn, Bobby Burgess, The Expeditions, Kimberly in California says hi, Elizabeth. Nice to have you here, Kimberly. K6YYL call sign. Pretty cool. Fast load started with the DX440. What am I doing here? Why is that changed? I thought I changed the timing. So, anyways, yeah, I started with a DX100, so kind of interesting. What else do we have? Max Headstrong says, I think the little neat shacks with one cheap radio can be the coolest as long as it's a pleasing, comfortable space. Yeah, absolutely. Brett Wayne, nice to have you here. KC2NXP in Salamanca, New York. Matt, nice to have you on board from Colorado. Vince, salut, bienvenue. De Deux Montagnes, always nice to have you here. Kind of close to Montreal. We can almost say Montreal. It's pretty much, very close to it. Okay. That's what I do too, Max Headstrong. I got a lot of radios here, and what I do is rotate in between the radios so that they are all used from time to time. I've been thinking that I've been spending way too much time with the XH Data D808 in the past couple of months. Now I need to go back and dish out some of those radios that are looking at me miserable and just saying, hey, why am I not used anymore? Matt says, in our group we ask a question but give them 24 hours to answer it. Some folks do in that time. Yeah, well, usually when you see that somebody doesn't answer the question, I always wait. They eventually answer the questions. Nothing much, Northern Dawn. There's just asking. There's two questions actually. It's what radios you own and how often do you listen to the radio, and then I ask you to agree to the rules, and that's it. Which are just to be a great person. Redolva65 from New York City. What else do we have? Yeah, that was that's the risk of having a group. Unfortunately, it's sometimes difficult to manage everything. It's not always cool, but you got to do what you got to do. Arthur's Alley Crafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you on board from rainy Massachusetts. Just got back from early Thanksgiving dinner with his son. Going to do some FM DXing with my new vintage Sherwood receiver tonight. Cool. Raining here in Montreal also tonight. Rob Babcock. Nice to have you here, Rob. W0RAB in Connecticut. And he's a blind ham, so, we do have some people with disabilities that do our hobby. Elizabeth is also blind, and that's why she's not in the chat, and she's going to have a lot of difficulty to... how to use the chat, just out of curiosity, Rob. Maybe she might want to see how she can join in, but she, maybe she prefers simply to be at the through the email. Keegan, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Pretty cool to have you on board. 40 Fahrenheit. John Ritson signed up to my Facebook page. Cool. Trond, nice to have you here from Norway. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Tron, nice to have you here. I just lost where I was. Okay. David, KJ4CMY. Nice to have you on board. No la résolution tonight. I've got this Fin du Monde, and I've got two lighter beers at 5%. Ron Deming, nice to have you here from the Oregon coast. Pretty cool. WF7I Homebrew says, very familiar with odd reactions about our hobby for non-geeks. Absolutely. I mean, there are, I remember one day I was actually talking about our, somebody, actually a Facebook friend, that's been a Facebook friend for a long time. And sometimes on my personal Facebook page, I will actually post, listening to whatever, like those in the Facebook group, you notice that I actually decoded a really beautiful satellite image from the Boston WeatherFact station. And I posted in the Shortwave group, but I posted it on my own personal Facebook page. Just, one of the reasons I do that, actually, is to kind of show people that are my Facebook friends the kind of geek that I am, kind of give them a full picture that, the guy that goes at the bar, drinks beer, and sings songs at the karaoke is also geeking out with radio stuff and computers and whatever. So, I when I do that, it's kind of show everybody what type of person I am. So one day, there's a meetup, and we're, a bunch of guys. And one guy says, "Hey, I saw you the other day. You were talking about, receiving China and Romania and whatever." And he asked me, "Well, what's that? How do you do that?" So I think I probably talked for 2 minutes and a half, and I saw this, face of his, and was like, "Oh, nice." And you're like, "Yeah. It's not your thing. It's okay. Don't worry. I'm a geek. I'm in my world." You ask the question, so you got to suffer for the answer. If you're not interested in knowing, don't ask the question. Because I never talk about my hobby really. Even Fastload, I know from Zoe Karaoke Bar. Okay, Fastload, we met there, and we even didn't really talk to each other much for a while. And when we started talking, even then, we didn't talk really about anything geeky. We did talk a little bit about computers because we both were fixing some of the tech from the bar over there. But one day, I don't know, it's like we talked about radio, and suddenly Fastload was like, "Oh man, okay, you're a radio geek." I was a radio geek, and I actually brought Fastload back to the hobby because of my radio stuff. And that's why he's here tonight. When we started talking, it's like, oh, wow, we are two extraterrestrials and two aliens in the bar talking about radio, which is the two only ones in the bar talking about radio. But it's cool, But, I don't talk about that. I don't talk about my radio life, really. When I go out with friends, the last thing I'm going to talk about is, I was listening to Voice of Vietnam last night, and then I actually tuned in. What did you do last night? Oh, I listened to the radio. I was listening to Radio Nacional Amazonas in Brazil. Imagine the stare on the face. It's like, yeah, on the internet? No, it has nothing to do with the internet. It's radio waves on shortwave. Forget it. I never talk about my hobby. Never, because I know that it's something nobody really is interested in, and I don't want to annoy people. I want to have friends. I want to have friends. The best way to have friends is to avoid certain conversations sometimes. That means also sometimes avoiding talking about radio, shortwave radio. Have a normal life sometimes. So you go from the geek life to the normal life. And but that's the way it is, and we got to live with it. I mean, even in our own family. I remember my brother telling me, it's like, "Oh, you're listening to the static again." Oh, he wakes up. I remember like him laughing at me, my brother laughing at me, saying, "Oh, you wake up at 5 a.m. to listen to static." Yeah, I wake up at 5 a.m. for static. That's it. Glenn Zekman, nice to have you here from Tennessee. Wizard of Oz, nice to have you on board, Ozzy. KC9TVN, pretty cool. Northern Dawn gets tired of explaining the hobby to people. Yeah, that's it. I've stopped doing that, honestly. Dave O'Toole, nice to have you on board from Dublin, Ireland, where it's midnight, pretty much. Simon Templar, nice to have you here, my friend. Simply was listening to 6586 Upper Sideband, the Caribbean B sector of New York radio. Cool. What else do we have? Max says trying to explain the hobby as it as a form of radio astronomy. Most people have at least heard of radio telescopes, but it makes it seem a tad more normal. you know, when when you talk about radio astronomy, it seems more normal. Okay. Oh man. Keegan has his Ethon Grundig Edition Field BT radio with internal antenna. Kevin Davis, nice to have you here. KC5IBT from Oklahoma City. Bullfrog 89 says 11780 coming in and from South America on his little R9012. A lot of static though. WF7I says parents flying in to visit tomorrow, but I hope I can squeeze in some time to chase pirates. Will you be posting on the Facebook group for this? I will not be here tomorrow most of the day, so I'm not sure I'll be able to chase any pirates during Thanksgiving Day tomorrow. But of course, if I am next to the radio, I will post as much as I can, for sure. Well, you know, Simplio, it's always like that. The ATC, the air traffic control, is often always the strongest. There are two reasons why. First of all, you got to understand that New York is probably closer. Antenna setup is probably better than what a plane does as HF antennas are. And, you know, the power isn't the same from a plane, you know, from the air traffic control center also. Carl, nice to have you on board, my friend. And happy Thanksgiving to you, U.S. friends. Remember that here in Canada, it's nothing special this week. It's a normal week. We had our Thanksgiving last month. Max S. Strong cares less about being normal as I grow old. Yeah, that's pretty much what I don't really care also. Joey D, nice to have you on board, Joe. Checking in from New Jersey. How about all of us call Brother Stairs' number and leave him a message? Oh, that'd be nice. I'd be calling his number and mooing, like, you know, when there's these moaning sessions. Yes, pirate flag is there, Simon. Kevin Wood from Nova Scotia, nice to have you here. Oh, God. David Anderson. Have you ever tried to download images from the International Space Station, looking to do that as a challenge? Absolutely. I got actually several images downloaded as slow scan TV images from the ISS over the last year and a half. It's always fun when they do that slow scan TV event. It's always a lot of fun. It's something I find really cool. You know, listening to a signal that comes from space is just already cool. And you're decoding a signal from the International Space Station orbiting Earth. I mean, how cool could that be? There's not a lot of cooler things than that, honestly, in life. James de Calais, bonjour et bienvenue de la France. Nice to have you here. Ham Extra, nice to have you on board. W5BL from Central Texas. Heard rumors that there are pirates activating for Thanksgiving, 6925 at 23 UT. I would guess tomorrow, as we are 0 UT. But there's, you know, it's Thanksgiving, so there will be pirates tomorrow for sure. That I'm pretty sure. If you listen in, I listened a little bit earlier and tried to see if anything was there, but I didn't see any pirates tonight. Hollywood One, nice to have you here from northern New Jersey. Pretty cool to have you here. Keegan says hello to Elizabeth. Kevin Wood says hello to Elizabeth. Pretty cool. Dave Thought, nice to have you here, Dave. Pretty cool. WF7I Omer says, I'm envious of the clean, tidy shacks. I've always lived in a maze of wires, test equipment, and notebooks, constantly striving to clean the mess. You know what? It's funny because, you know, I start out with a really clean thing, you know, and I'm happy and everything's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is so cool. Finally, it's beautiful. I'm going to keep this beautiful and perfect and clean. And you look at it you know, a month later and it's like a big junk mess of all sorts of things all together, you know. And you know, it's part of it is, you take like something to, you take a radio, you take a measuring instrument or something, or you take wires for something, and you don't put them back where they were. You just leave them there, and it just makes a mess. But what happens when I actually listen and when I use my different spots, often is I start out, it's beautiful, it's clean, it's perfect. Then it gets messy and messier and messier. When I wake up in the morning and just feel like I don't feel well anymore, I know that means the mess is so huge now that I don't like it. I don't like being in the room anymore. So that's the time when, okay, let's do a cleanup. Let's start a real big cleanup. And that's pretty much the way I work. So every 3 months, I get that moment of, well, okay, it's ugly junk time. No, I want to clean the room. And it's funny because it seems like the room is getting smaller. And I feel like I'm in that little small space. And then I clean up everything. And I look at the room, it's like, wow, this is a big room, actually. But, you gotta do that cleanup from time to time. Oh, man. John Ritson, anyone else suffering from FTTC, fiber to the cabinet, broadband interference? Oh, man. You know what? For a long time, suspected that one of my main interference came from the Bell copper wires with DSL and everything. And I still think some of the interference I get comes from there. Even though they added fiber optics and everything. It's one of those things that you're like, yeah. It's crazy because the technology around us is unfortunately really making things bad for us and making things really, really difficult in our hobby, unfortunately. I'm grateful for the loop antennas. They have helped me kind of get a little bit more of the signals that I couldn't listen to. So it kind of makes me enjoy the hobby a little more. But still, it's not like going to Perry Island for a day expedition. When I go there, I come back home, I feel like I want to cry because of all the noise around us. Jersey bound, nice to have you on board. Yes, the Kenwood R5000 is cool. Actually, Fastload has what was my old Kenwood R5000. So, kind of cool. Let's go down. Kevin Wood says, have troll problem on another group I mod for. Will pop in and out. Yeah. It's bound to happen. We will have some at some point because, it's the way the internet works. That's why I try to have as many moderators as possible. Because when people say here, why is it there's so many moderators? Yeah, did you see how fast that idiot that posted that shit got removed? That's why we got a lot of moderators, and that's going to be the same on the Facebook group. I want to have trusted people, a nice big bunch of trusted people, so that immediately anything that's out of bounds is gone. We don't even have time to see it. One of the things is so funny because one of my friends that I have a beer with every week, Jean-Marc, comes here with, you guys see him sometimes in the chat with Jay Jolie. And he was telling me once that he was looking at the chat and he didn't have time. Somebody was removed and he didn't have time to. And I think Fastlow also mentioned something about that. Somebody mentioned something and he was removed real fast. So nobody actually had the time to see whatever he wrote. Well, that's why having tons of moderators. I also find it funny because, I'm always behind. For right now, I'm 15 minutes behind in the chat. So when I get to whatever, crap somebody posted, I never see anything. It doesn't matter. So they're losing their time, They're kind of idiots losing their time. I mean, come on. You have to be or really have no life to do something like that, honestly. Dave O'Toole says, I too have been spending way too much time on the XHD 808. Got it on your recommendations and has blown me away. Half of the time reception is so good on the whip, I don't even need a wire antenna. It's actually very good radio. I'm totally amazed. Nathan Petrovsky, nice to have you here. Oh, you're blind as well. Wow. Okay. Well, it's nice to have all of you around. Really cool. Stu Underwood, nice to have you on board from Northeast Ohio. What else do we have? Radioactive. Nice to have you on board, my friend. W7WXV from CN94NH land, where it's 28 Fahrenheit and snowing. Here it's raining, but it's very close to zero. It's like about 36, 37 Fahrenheit. Prasad Asoldekar, nice to have you here from India, my friend. Dan V, nice to have you on board, Dan. Where are you from? Trimbali, Mr. Bale, what's the difference between a geek and a nerd? Would you guys say a geek is somebody that is technology oriented and a nerd is somebody that is science oriented? How would you guys define a geek versus nerd? So I define it as a geek. For me, if you say you're a geek, you have something to do with technology of some sort. Gaming, computers, radio. A nerd is you're just, amazing with science and math and whatever. What do you guys say? Joe Gomez, nice to have you here, my friend. Pretty cool. R5000 on the frequency of 5000. I had a lot of nice years with that 5000, honestly. I really had a lot of fun. Carl says, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Dan V says, hi, Joe, from Windy, Ohio. Great audio from Mike setup. Cool, thanks. N8WJZ, nice to have you here. Max Estrong says, my radios all have personalities. I swear, I learn a little more about each one every time I use them. Well, they do have personalities. They do have their own way of actually, the way you tune them. They all have their little, kind of quirks and quarks. Each radio has that little thing that annoys you terribly, and that thing that you love terribly. If you take any radio, there's something that will, there will be something that really drives you nuts about it, and something that you love about it. And you gotta learn to use it and be happy with it. Great old one. Nice to have you here from the Oregon coast. Rob, nice to have you on board from Phoenix, Arizona. And if you're a geek and a nerd, well, you're not, you're all of that together. The Drake R8B is a beautiful radio. I saw one, on the Facebook group. Somebody who's posted he's using a Drake R8. There's something about that radio that is really cool. Gilles Nouveau, nice to have you here. Pretty cool. Matt says, I've managed to talk about a radio to non-radio folks. I can't remember exactly how we get on the subject, but it happens and people are usually cool about it. Herman Kurd, what the hell is that for a fast load? Jamali, Mr. Bill, no one is interested in shortwave because they're more interested in holding an LCD screen 3 inches from their face. What the hell you talking about, man? Simply, I often wonder if I should shut my computer in free or shortwave, but turn off computer when and I hear more. Yeah, well, for a long time I had to do that actually. For a long time, honestly, I would turn off my computers to be able to hear and listen to shortwave. I had no choice. Which always kind of made me mad because I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to, be on the computer and listen to the radio at the same time. And now, imagine with a software-defined receiver and SDR, it's even worse. So you gotta deal with that little box is actually plugged into a computer to work. WF7I Homebrew works in healthcare with nurses and doctors. Some doctors might be cool with the radio geek stuff, but most not. Certainly not nurses generally. Have to pick topics appropriate for the audience. That's pretty much what I do. I will go with the flow of whoever I have. So if I talk with people in a bar, I can bet you there's very little chance I'll be talking about radio. Great old one. Best shortwave antenna options. You know what? I think that if you're looking for something that's really amazing, doesn't cost a lot of money, the MLA30 loop antenna is amazing. But start with one option that is even cheaper. If you don't have a lot of noise, a wire antenna can actually be amazingly good, honestly. I know, David. I know I have a lot of friends here that I absolutely understand and know. Danny Cass, nice to have you on board from Buenos Aires. ¿Cómo está, mi amigo? From Donde, Argentina. Yeah, Rob, be yourself no matter what they say. I don't not talk about radio. I just don't go into subject, honestly. I'm a social geek and nerd. So I can actually divert into regular conversations. But if I spot one geek guy, for example, if I go to Zoe Karaoke and Fastload's there, I'll be in the social regular guy, meet Fastload for a beer, and we then start being geek nerds together. I adapt to the audience. Oh man. Brett Wayne, yes, beer and some turkey. So Simplio says, I guess I am a geek to aviation comms. That's cool. Fastload says, last time I mentioned Inmarsat in a conversation, everybody vanished. Well, if you have somebody that is annoying, that's what you could do, actually. You're just like, I listened to shortwave radio, and you know what? I got Voice of Vietnam last night. I mean, it was amazing. The signal was so strong. And, sometimes I go out and, put like 150 feet of wire in the trees. And it's really, imagine the face. It's like, if somebody annoys you, you just start like that. And it's like, he's gone in 5 minutes. Wow, hope everything's all right, Gilles Neveu, with the plant explosion. Peter de Groff, nice to have you here. What do you do about switching power supply noise from your computer on SDR dongle on the HF bands? Well, you know what? That's where I try to choose the best power supplies possible. So there's different things you can do, but the basic thing to do is, have a power supply that is very quiet. Honestly, I am happy. I purchased an Acer Nitro 5. An Acer Nitro 5 laptop a few months back to replace my old Toshiba. So I've been with Toshiba laptops all like forever. And Toshiba was my brand for many reasons. First, they were always excellent and amazing laptops. Two, they always were like almost noiseless. The power supply, the computers were very quiet. They did cost more than the average computer, but they are always very quiet with my hobby and SDRs and everything. My Acer Nitro 5 is also very quiet. I'm very happy, but if you should see the power supply, it's even bigger than my Toshiba. It's a big, clunky uh, power supply. For a modern laptop, I thought I would have something that was smaller, or I don't know. No, it's actually a very big power supply, and it is bigger than the one from my Toshiba from 5 years ago. So I guess you know what they kind of really took a really good quality one, and it's really very quiet in noise. As for the rest, you know what? If you use an SDR dongle or a device that's of course USB driven, using very good quality USB cables that have RF chokes on them. An example, my microphone here has a really big RF choke on it to remove all the noise that could be inside that cable. My USB cable that is from my SDR plate to my computer has an RFI choke on it to remove noise also. That also is a way to remove a lot of that noise. And do avoid the cheap power supplies. If you have to replace your original power supply of your laptop or even your desktop, be very careful what you choose. If you buy a cheap $20 one, you will have a lot of noise on it. Don't be cheap on power supplies. A desktop power supply that has very little noise is at least $40-50. Those start to be really good in lowering the noise levels. They're also better for your computer anyway. And on the laptop side, if you need a replacement, because a power supply can burn out, don't buy the eBay cheap $16-50 shipping included power supply. Yeah, it's going to power your PC, but you won't listen to Shortwave anymore. I can tell you that. The one I have here is... so the one I have here, so like on this one, for example, I do have a power supply that I actually purchased that replaces the one that was with this computer, which is a Toshiba, and it's a weird Chinese name, Prudent Way, but it's a $50 supply. It's not a $16.50 supply. It's a $50 power supply that has every type of plug available for any type of laptop out there. So the reason I bought it was for that. Whatever brand laptop I will actually encounter, there's a power switch on it that you can switch from all the different voltage. And there's all the connectors of every type of laptop you'll encounter. But it's not a cheap one. It's not a $20 one. It's a $50 one. And that one is actually very quiet. It's not as quiet as the original Toshiba, but I would say it's reasonably well shielded and works well. But the best, you know what? If you have a laptop or a desktop computer and it was quiet from the start, try to get the same original power supply. It might cost you a lot more. But you know what? What is a expensive power supply versus... you just actually removed all possibilities of listening to shortwave for the rest of your life, or do amateur radio because it's just too noisy. Sometimes you got to make choices. Ashton Benna, nice to have you here. Where are you from? David, what software would you use with a RTL SDR? I probably would use HD SDR, but it depends what we're going to do, David, okay? HD SDR is my favorite for the visuals and the way it works. But the RTL SDR, if you want to try digital mode decoding and all sorts of things like that, SDR Sharp is cool because it has a lot of plugins. So I would probably have both SDR Sharp with all the extra plugins, and HD SDR for the ease of use and how well it is. I was using one a couple of minutes ago. Here we go. Here's one of the cheap RTL SDRs. I was actually using it on, this is a Linux machine, by the way, here. And I was using it on that Linux machine with GQRX to see how well it works. So I didn't have time to play a lot with it, but I plan to play a little more with it. And for those that want to know, this is Elementary OS that is on this thing, which is a very downgraded, down-to-earth, very small distro of Linux that works great, especially for an older computer like that one. Preston Russell Dekar, bit sad my Sony 7600D, my companion for 30 years, just stopped working. What does it do? Nothing at all? Sometimes it's not that big of a problem. Oh, it's sad. Ashton Benna from Alberta, nice to have you here. Vancouver Island DXer, nice to have you on board. I've been replaying some of your live shows while cleaning out the garage. Where did all of this wire and coaxial cable come from? What was I thinking? Nice to have you here, Brian, VE7AUL. DRAF, nice to have you on board. Happy Thanksgiving to the US. And yeah, it's going to be an happy Thursday to Canadian colleagues. Pretty cool. Nathan Petrovsky, how do they get in HF antennas on planes? Well, most of them are along the fuselage of the plane. So they're kind of course, much shorter. But at least, you know, it does work, you know. What's my job? YouTube. And I really mean it. YouTube. It's my job. I was a tech guy for 15 years. Got really, really annoyed and bored with it. Fastload will totally understand what I mean when I say I just don't want to hear any computer problems for anyone ever again. But I've been YouTubing and I'm actually living off of YouTube now. I'm one of those lucky ones that can actually say I'm living off of YouTube. For sure. What else do we have? Sorry, guys. If anybody has a question I didn't answer yet, be patient. I'm trying to catch up a little more on the chat room. Radioactive says, speaking of radio and radio astronomy, I'm listening to 5260 MSK 144 mode for meteor scatter. Cool. Cool. That is fun. Yeah, ADSB out of 1090 megahertz. I often do that with the... I use that with the adapter on my phone, which is an Android phone, the Galaxy S9 phone. And what I do is I actually do decode the ADSB, and it shows up on the map on my phone. It's something cool that you can do with your Android devices, by the way. And a very, very simple RTL SDR dongle. All you need is the driver and SDR touch for tuning around. It's pretty cool. What else do we have? So if I, like for ADSB, if you use the software here, you can, hello, Alan Lafferty is watching, by the way. Thank you for being here. You can use, so you put the dongle there, and there's a software called Avare ADSB. So Avare SDSB, A-V-A-R-E, sorry, A-V-A-R-E ADSB. So that actually will help you display on a map the information from the bursts of the digital bursts. Will actually give the information, and it will display on the map the position of the planes on the Android. It works really well. I've used it so many times, it's so much fun to do, actually. With Flight Radar 24, you can actually feed all the data in Flight Radar 24, for sure. Okay, let's try to go. Grade old one is studying for general currently. Cool. And I'm sure you're going to get it. Come on. You can do it. Shelly Sykes. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Bro Weaver. Nice to have you here. Max Estrong. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution to stop complaining about radio smog. You gotta. It's the only thing you can do. Miki Dalmich has just heard CFVP 6030 Calgary was a target for copper wire theft. So the station is out of the air. Work is in progress to the transmitter and missing grounding and should be back on the air in a few days. Man, these copper thieves are like crazy. Crazy dumb. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. John Risson, shall I agree on the issue you suffer with, as my location was once so clear of all interference, as you may remember a few years ago. But alas, these days, I need to move away to practice the hobby. It is sad, absolutely. Jean-Marc Letz, nice to have you on board. Says, on board in Strasbourg, France. 8 Celsius. I found Strasbourg station. Saskatchewan, Canada, -5 on the MSN Video. Oh, man. What else do we have? Jeff Barrett, nice to have you here. Happy Thanksgiving once again to all of our U.S. viewers, for sure. Here it's it's raining and supposed to change to snow tonight. I would guess Geek is, wow, we talked about that 15 minutes ago. I guess Geek is more like if you are, I would tend to see a geek as more of a, someone that actually does something. And a nerd, somebody that's more in his head, like a great old one who says it well. Geek is techie and a nerd is cerebral. I think that's perfectly explains what it is, absolutely. David Martin, nice to have you here. Nerds take revenge, geeks do not. Yeah, Rob says, enthusiast, geek, an enthusiast of a particular topic or field. So we're a geek of radio, but nerd, a studious intellectual, although, again, of a particular topic. So we are nerd and geeks of our hobby, maybe. Or at least maybe I am. Jason McIntyre, nice to have you here, my friend. Where are you from? Roberto Rojas, ¿cómo está, my friend? Desde Morón, Argentina. ¿Cómo está, mi amigo? Mark Elford, nice to have you here. Says, always considered myself a radio nerd, but now a radio geek. Sounds better. Yeah, you're a radio geek. That's for sure. You're a radio geek. So, Alan Lafferty just sending pictures of what it looks like to see me at his location. So, I look good. Looks good. I'm the guy in the screen. Nice to have everybody here, by the way. It's always fun to be here. And, you know, today was one of those days where, you know, you like 2 hours before the show, you're like, yeah, you know, I'm not sure I have the drive for the show tonight. You know, you gotta get into it, you know. And you know what? Already an hour has passed, and I mean, we're having fun. And it's cool. You know, pretty cool. So we're, you know, a lot of us are geek nerds, probably. Yes, absolutely. Maybe geek and nerds go together in many aspects of things also. We're geeks and nerds together. You know. Uh, Jason McIntyre is from the UK. Nice to have you here. Thank you for the nice comments, my friend. Ron Deming, I was very much into air radio monitoring back in the early 90s. ATC from San Francisco could hear the planes giving location and so on. Pretty cool. I plotted them on a map on the wall. That's fun. A radio with an attitude. Oh, God. Radio with an attitude. Now, do geeks or nerds drink beer? Often we don't see that. Often we see like nerds are like in their special bubble, or the geeks are in their special bubble. So I'm a geek and a nerd and a beer drinker at the same time or something. Max That Strong says, took me years to warm up to the Drake R8B. Didn't care much for it at all first. Now becoming one of my favorites. Looks so cool, and it is nice. You know, I never had... I can't say I've ever found the Drake R8B one of the most beautiful radios out there, honestly. I always found it kind of very squarey, clunky. And I always thought that my Kenwood R5000 actually looked sexier. But as time went by and I looked at, I was looking at a picture yesterday on Facebook, it is a very sexy radio. And it is a very nice radio, honestly. You know? Jeff Barrett says, my wife and I are both IT geeks nerds. Daughter is in cybersecurity. That's a geek nerd family. That's perfect. I mean, come on. Ron Deming says, can't beat 100-foot long wire. Bolin 191, can I put chicken wire on ceiling for antenna? Does it have to be tuned? Yes, but please remove the chicken. Oh, man. Stu Underwood's using OCF Wyndham 60 feet up. Cool. Smokey Bear. Bonsoir. Nice to have you here, my friend, from Ottawa, Ontario. Steve, KD7JVR. Nice to have you here with ICOM 746 Pro. And he's shortwave listening in Scottsdale, Arizona. Cool. Just missed the Brother Stare morning hour. Oh, man. Studio. Da, da, da. Copyright strike. Zanit13. Nice to have you on board from Sundsvall, Sweden. Pretty cool. Eduardo Montero. Nice to have you here from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Where's Paul? Paul was here like 2 minutes before the show. He wanted some food, and now, of course, he's gone sleeping. You know. Ah, man. David Martin, answering earlier RTL SDR question, I'd recommend SDR Sharp. You can easily customize. Yeah, for the add-ons, SDR Sharp is absolutely the way to go. That's for sure. Rufus Newt, Acer is all I have ever owned since the late 80s when I built my first desktop. You know, I hated Acer. I always found, okay, well, let's start from the start. So when I started being a tech guy, of course, I started seeing all the computers that people owned. And for a long time, Acer was the last of what I would probably be buying, because I always thought that Acer computers were so cheap. And what happened is lately, in the past couple of years, Acer computers are much better, but they are also more expensive. They kind of decided to change the bracket of where they wanted to be. Acer for me was for a long time the cheap computers. Now Acer actually is in the mid to high end range computers. It's actually good. The Nitro 5 is definitely a high range, really a high-end computer. The laptop I've got here is just amazing. And of course, with the dual GPUs and everything, it's just great. It's a gaming GPU. It's a gaming machine, Pretty amazing. Come on, fast load. It's impossible. Yeah, I think that one is yours that you gave me. I have another one. It's a blue one, which is also an RTL SDR, which is somewhere here. But I think that's the one you gave me at some point. No, 15555 is in the daytime. At nighttime, there's nothing. Current Patch DX. Nice to have you on board from Iowa. Great show tonight. Getting some home late because of poor weather. Will you be on the radio report this Sunday with Sheldon? I'm always there, Current Patch DX. I am always on the International Air Radio Report every Sunday mornings. I'm a regular guy now at that show. Nope. It's been like that now for I don't know, a year and a half or roughly, and I'm very happy to be part of the show. Actually, we have a lot of fun, and I actually talked a lot about and it was interesting the subject we had about the FCC in the United States that is pushing towards offering AM radio stations to be all digital if they want. It's going to be interesting to see what station will decide to be all digital suddenly at some point. I think that's going to be pretty cool. Milroy Peter, nice to have you on board from Costa Rica on vacation. Wow. Yeah, 33 degrees. That's not what we have here. Now, you know what? I actually can see you now next to the beach with a portable shortwave radio and just enjoying time. What's my email? It's officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. Rob, do airplanes have less noise on the radio stations because of their flying altitudes? Well, one thing for sure is that the only interference at the height that they do fly is the one made by the plane itself. Because at that altitude, it must be pretty quiet conditions. Simplio says 6586 when quiet. Not sure if it's band conditions or no planes. Could be both. 73, a great old one. Matt just got a foot of snow yesterday. Whoa, okay. Here, all the snow we had is pretty much melted now. Rufus Nude has huge snowflakes and sloppy roads. Milroy Peter brought his shortwave radio, and it's just amazing the signals down here. You don't need an antenna, really, because there's barely no noise. It comes down to pretty much what I say all the time. The biggest problem is not that there's no signals on shortwave. The biggest problem, and our biggest enemy, is there's too much noise now. Simply a radio geek party. Absolutely. Rufus Newt, a geek and a nerd is being a well-rounded individual. Cool. Bobby Burgess getting planes as we speak on his Avare ADSB. Cool. Mark Carson, nice to have you here. I should turn off this thing. Yeah, I know my password isn't good. So, Joe Rotman has a Sony CRF 230. Hey, Steve in Australia. Nice to have you on board. Kevin Wood will take his radio to Maui for Christmas. Oh, man. That must be a lot of fun there to listen to radio. And what y'all get there is pretty cool. William Helms. Nice to have you on board. Pretty cool. What else do we have? Hey, I've reached did I jump over stuff here a little bit? I try not to. David Martin, Dallas Amateur Radio Club has monthly GeekNet, but no NerdNet. Why not? That'd be nice. A NerdNet. You know, come on. A nerdnet. Robert Prosper, nice to have you on board. Yes, happy Thanksgiving once again to all U.S. viewers. I just want to show you guys if you are a subscriber to the Spectrum Monitor magazine. Two things. First of all, you've got the December edition of the Spectrum Monitor that is now available. That was released today. So let me just show you guys a cover of that magazine. And don't forget that the way that they work, they want us to always send our membership, our subscription starts in January and ends in December. So remember, guys, if you want to renew your subscription, which I will, it will be time to do so. So this is the December edition of the Spectrum Monitor, which is a great magazine. Anybody out there that is fond of what was the Monitoring Times magazine, this has a feel and even has a lot of the different editors that were in the Monitoring Times that have articles in there. Spectrum Monitor is an electronic publication only, and I know a lot of you have a hard time with that, but it's great because I downloaded it on my tablet. And it deals with every aspect of radio. So if you want to check it out, the Spectrum Monitor, I think, is a great magazine. If you don't want to subscribe, you can actually buy, one edition for a lower price, like $3 or something. So you can buy just one. You can look at the cover and see what's interesting in a specific month. And for $3 or something like that, you can download just one. And for those that are subscribed, remember that we'll have to renew our subscriptions pretty much now. So if you guys want to check it out, it's the time when we need to do it. So I'll be, of course, as usual. I've been a subscriber to Spectrum Monitor for at least 2 or 3 years now, and find it really interesting to I want to keep my subscription. It's an interesting magazine. Unfortunately, electronics only. That's for sure. Yeah, Robert Prosper. It was fun to have the paper magazine. That's for sure. I remember my monthly purchases were Monitoring Times. I remember, there was a time in the 90s that it cost me a fortune in magazines. And there's a time in the 90s that I would go to my favorite newspaper stand, and I would purchase Monitoring Times, Popular Communications. There would be another one from the UK that I don't remember the name, but that I would purchase from time to time also. I would actually buy Astronomy Magazine, Sky and Telescope, and even in the early 90s, I remember buying Compute's Gazette and Compute, which were magazines for Commodore computers. Wow, I would buy tons. I remember I had a pile of like several hundred magazines lying around at some point. Pretty crazy. Popular Electronics, yeah. Popular Electronics. I remember buying that from time to time. Even Popular Mechanics sometimes had some interesting articles that I would purchase. So it was kind of cool, honestly. Kind of cool. Oh, man. Simply going to spin the dial on the Texan PL600. So, Steve, you can subscribe today for a full subscription, and you will starting. Well, we're in November. You know what? I probably can today. Maybe just mention that you are subscribing to the 2020 Spectrum monitor. I will wait. I always wait like at Christmas time, and I actually send my dues for the subscription for 2020. Because what happens is that the way they work, which is, I understand that it's easier for them, but at the same time, it's kind of weird, is that if you subscribe for a year, like if you subscribe in September, you're actually buying all the year's subscription from January of this same year until the end. So, I always wait like at Christmas and subscribe there to renew my subscription, actually. At the worst, Steve, if you want to have your January and later, just wait in January and subscribe. You'll have all year. And you'll be okay. William Helms just wrote WRMI about German signal on 7780 from Argentina. Got the day before. Yeah, if you send all the details, if you QSL, you got to send time, date, some details of what you heard. WRMI is a great QSLer. Argentina is also a good QSLer, but they want to have if it's by email, they want to have a audio clip of what you actually received. And you can order an issue. So you know what, Steve? That I think Matt has a pretty good idea. For $3, you can have like the December edition. Purchase the December edition for $3, and when you get to January, subscribe. Like January the 1st or 2nd, and you'll get January to December in one. You'll have a 1-year subscription. Yeah, 80s, 90s. Hey, I remember, Robert is talking about 90s were the golden age for magazines. I remember buying, here, it was complicated, because here in Canada, there was always that, very often, that difference in Canadian dollars versus U.S. currency that made some of the stuff more expensive. And one of the problems was that at some point, it was really, really... Like, for example, it's crazy now. Here in Canada, Sky and Telescope, for example, in the newsstand will be almost $10. Which is, I'm sorry, way too expensive for a magazine. But I remember in the 80s, you would get... I would actually purchase... Compuse Gazette for $3, and all these magazines were like $3.25, $3.50 Canadian. That was kind of reasonable, And then our dollar went like way haywire, and it's like they increased the price of the magazines. Magazines and paper stuff is so expensive today, and that's what I hate the most. Spectrum Monitor is sad that it's electronic only, but at the same time, it does totally keep the price in a reasonable range. I think it's $36 US. It's like 41 Canadian. It counts as like $4 a month, which for me is totally reasonable. Even if it was $5 a month, I would find that totally reasonable for a magazine. Compared to the paper versions now that it's just crazy expensive. Yeah, I think it was that, John McClure, Shortwave magazine. Pretty sure. Paul L. McCord Jr., nice to have you on board. Is that a DX66 and a DX100 on the shelf? I used to have both of them. Oh man, both were stolen. That's sad. So that's a DX100. The one you see there is a Shortwave 60, a SW60. They do look alike, but it's a little different. The SW60 is different a little bit. So, Rufus Newt, I spend way too much money on magazines. Same here. Same here. Yeah, Computer Shopper. That was a big thing. Yes, absolutely. I remember Computer Shopper. I never bought Computer Shopper, but my sister, that was a ham radio operator, her husband would buy the Computer Shopper from time to time. And when I would go there and visit, I would actually be going through the Computer Shopper magazine. That was huge. I remember. That was really huge. I remember, like, typing in the programs from Compute's Gazette into my Commodore computer. And then, after a full afternoon of entering code, you suddenly notice that the code doesn't work because you made a mistake somewhere. Oh, man. David Martin says Starlog, Fangoria. Oh, man. Nostalgia. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Scientific American was very, very good. It's very serious. It's a great science read. That's for sure. Oh, I never heard of that magazine. David S9. Really? I never heard that. Oh man. Nostalgia is so nostalgic. What Beast on YouTube? Nice to have you here, my friend. Where has been Tim Robinson? I don't know. I haven't had any news of Tim Robinson in such a long time. I had news from Tim either through my YouTube stuff or through WhatsApp. I uninstalled WhatsApp because there's too much of a there was a big security flaw, and I didn't want to have to deal with WhatsApp, so I uninstalled WhatsApp for that reason. So I don't know. I haven't had any news of Tim Robinson. I hope he's okay. Robert Prosper says, I can imagine a group like this 30 years hence waxing nostalgic about this. Anyone remember YouTube? Oh man. Yeah. Oh man. Yes, you can pre-order the 2020 World Radio TV Handbook. Absolutely. Same here, Matt. The one I have is a 2017. I will be purchasing the 2020 World Radio TV Handbook also. Actually, I'm going to check that out tomorrow. Make sure that I order the World Radio TV Handbook for 2020. For sure. David, there was a time in the 60s when the Canadian dollar was worth more. Not just in the 60s. And about 5 years ago, Canadian dollar was actually also worth more than the US dollar. That's when I actually did most of my shortwave radio purchases on eBay. About 5 years ago, the Canadian dollar was worth like $1.02, $1.03, $1.04 US. And that meant that everything on eBay was much cheaper because a lot of what's on eBay is in US dollars. That's when I made the bulk of my purchase of shortwave radios. Right now, the Canadian dollar is like 75, 76 cents US. So that means that, for example, for a $10 item, $10 US item, it'll cost me like $12.50, $13. It doesn't show much in a $10 item, but when you purchase a $100 thing and it costs you $30 more, it starts to show up. But at the other end, there's also a positive side to it. For example, when you guys give me donations in U.S. funds, I get actually a lot more because your U.S. dollar gives me more Canadian dollars. So that's there's kind of a nice, there's a good side to it and a bad side to it. Depends where you are, what side of the fence you are. Yeah, Computer Shopper. Bolin 191, does the receiving antenna need an earth element like dipole, or is it a small wire to ground objects? It depends on the antenna you have. Some antennas require to be earthed to be to work well with a ground rod or something, but some do not need that, like Loop, for example. Yeah, Byte magazine, Kevin Wood, absolutely. Page Master Omni magazine, I kind of remember that. Simply, or remember Police Call? I used to buy them at Radio Shack. Yeah. Oh, man. Todd J. Riddle. Nice to have you here, my friend. Turkey Day tomorrow. Have a good Turkey Day. Hey, Eb Blassie. Nice to have you here, my friend, from Oakland, California. David Martin says, computer shopper, great for finding the best price for 16 kilobyte language card to upgrade to Apple II. Oh, man. Joe Brown, nice to have you on board from rainy, windy southeast Michigan. Pretty much the same weather here in Montreal. Kevin Wood, I still have a hardbound copy of a collection of the amateur scientist articles from... You know what? You guys know that. Let me just find the website again, because you guys will have a lot of fun with this. There's a archive magazine online. Let me just try to find the... Oh man, what was the name of that website? American something called the American, oh god. Here, American Magazine, what is that? Is it that? Wait. There's something about, oh man, forgot what website. There's a website. Some of you out there must know it, which is American Radio. Oh, what's the archive thing? American Radio Magazine Online. What's the... Oh, American Radio History. I got it. AmericanRadioHistory.com. You guys go there. You will have, and I actually have a lot of fun going there, an amazing amount of magazines from the past, of radio, of television, of all sorts of electronics. If you want to have fun viewing older magazines, that's the place to go. I'm going to post a link here. And here we go. American Radio History is the place. All in PDF. You can download magazines and actually go through them. It's just so crazy. So crazy what you have in there. Really, really crazy. So check that out. And there's a lot of radio magazines out in there that you can actually check out, honestly. It's pretty cool. I've downloaded like tons of magazines from that website into my tablet, because I've downloaded some radio magazines from like the 50s and the 40s. It's just amazing when you look at it, and see the prices and everything. Just crazy. What else do we have? Joe Brown, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Kevin Wood, still have a hardbound copy of the collection of the amateur scientist articles. That's what I was saying earlier. I wonder if anything on the market that is a magazine that discusses VHF and above in the form of magazines or online ebooks. I know that the ARRL has VHF, UHF book that is available. Yeah, it's true, Mickey Delmage. Usually CIDX does have available the World Radio TV Handbook. through the club. Robert Prosper, I'm about to drop $200 on a radio. Alas, it is a smartphone, so I will have to pay about $60 a month to use it. Oh, man. Jerry, powering off. At least the phone works. Shirley Sykes says, my son wants to get me a radio for Christmas. Do you think the XH Data D808 is my best choice when it comes to ease of use and budget? I mean, there's a lot of features on the XH Data D808. So, of course, it might not be the simplest radio to use. But if you get an XH Data D808, you are getting, for the price paid, an amazing receiver. And I think it is worth it. And you know what? I will be posting some tomorrow. I'm going to continue my videos on how to use the XH Data, because a lot of people have been asking me to continue and to do it. It's really a lot, just time that I have to find to do it. So you can actually watch the videos and help out. It's not that difficult to use. I think, you're in the XH Data D808, you're getting a really amazing radio. Really amazing radio. What else do we have? What else? Robert Prosper. Those were the days, my friends. We thought they'd never end. We'd listen to Radio Nederland for hours at a time. I remember I remember looking at magazines, buying these magazines, listening to Radio Moscow World Service. Oh, man. Oh, man. Simply 40 meters into band. Carl Womble. Nice to have you on board. Happy Thanksgiving. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Robert Prosper. If you want to have radio porn, look at old-time catalogs from Radio Shack, Allied Radio, Lafayette Electronics. Absolutely. Absolutely. Joey D's decoding Morse code on FLDG. Pretty cool. On the 160-meter band. Simply, I finally got to hear how they test APCO P25 digital audio. They read a phrase and then the other person repeats the phrase. If it's correct, they say pass. Okay. Robert Prosper wants to build a simple crystal radio, but where I live, there is non-possibility of either ground connection or an outdoor aerial. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. David Martin says, prove that engineering, drawing, drafting was a real career. Mark Alford, the more you use the XH Data, the better they get. Shaggy says, thank you. And perfect timing for your videos coming up. Excellent. Yep, more of them. So you'll be able to use pretty much all of them. You'll see that they're not that difficult. The other way isn't too bad. Hey, tonight we're supposed to tune the bands a little bit and find... I'm going to just pause the chat room here. Find some of the signals. Before we start, I'm going to just do a little bit of selfish promotion. If you guys love what I do, don't forget paypal.me/shortwave is where you can actually give me a little PayPal donation. Give me a little something if you like what I do, or the Yahoo email that I'm posting right now is where you can send a little something. You can also be part of 12 patrons right now at patreon.com/radio and computers, where you can actually set up a little something and give me something every month. I'm just going to close the door because there's a little bit of noise on the other side. Okay. So, you can... Yes, something fell. So you can actually give a little something. And if you enjoy what I do, if you think that it's totally worth it, kind of a subscription. Some people take it as a subscription. Why not think of a little something to help out? I'm here twice a week, and this is my living, so it helps out. It makes the possibility of buying new equipment, changing whatever breaks down, because things break down from time to time, and it's much appreciated if you can spare a little something. And thanks for those that have donated. It's always great. And those that can't, don't worry about it. It's okay. Okay, let's tune a little bit of the bands, and I'm going to actually share 2 websites where I'm going to be checking out what I'm listening to. So the first one is one that I use very often, which is a list. And it's the list of EIBI space right here. And the other website that I'm going to share is shortwave.info. That is also a nice place to check out any signals. If you tune around the bands, you can actually use these websites to find what station you're listening to. The reason I want to do this tonight a little bit is because a lot of people have a hard time really understanding what they are listening to when they get to a frequency range. So we're going to actually test it out here on the 49 meter band tonight. Let's try. So I'm going to go to the 49 meter band, which is 6 megahertz, and I'm going to tune something that I'm not sure what it could be. So, okay, there's something on 6125 in Spanish. So 6125, 6125. It's in Spanish. I know it's in Spanish, but I don't know what it is. What could it be? So when I go and use these websites, so if I use the EIBI space, which is often the one that I use actually, because I have this weird mental problem where I like lists, I will use the search functionality of the browser. So like Control F in Windows or Command F in Mac, and I think it's Control F also in Linux. And I will type the frequency that I'm actually searching for. So 6125. And now I've got stations on 6125. I've got Radio Marti. I've got Voice of Turkey. I've got China National Radio. So what I will actually want to do is identify it using, first of all, the time. We talked about, and today I actually concentrated a little bit on videos on knowing what universal time it is where you live. And it's very important because radio, shortwave radio, lives, amateur radio lives in universal time. We never use local time because local time doesn't mean anything for most of us. If I tell you it's 8:43 p.m. here, for a big chunk of all of you out there watching, and like, what's UTC compared to that? Because that's my local time zone, 8:43. But in reality, right now, we're at 0143 UTC. That's the important number, not the local time. So today I posted 2 videos. One about understanding that having a clock in UTC, and you guys can see it here. I have a clock in UTC that's right here. So that's a UTC clock right now, 143. This one is always UTC, and I suggest that everybody does keep one clock UTC. But if you don't have a clock, if you use a portable radio, remember guys, all portable radios have a clock. And the clock on the display should always be on the portable radio for shortwave. Don't put it in local time. Put your clock in universal time. It's important to put it in UTC. And that way, every time you listen to shortwave, you always know what UTC time it is when you're listening. Because everything you'll see in these lists, everything you'll see when you look at these websites, is always referred to as universal time. Universal time is there for that reason. We all live in different time zones. If we had to deal with everybody else's local time, we'd kind of be lost at what time it is exactly that you're listening to the signal. So always refer and always say when you, for example, in the Facebook group, if you have to say that you're listening to a signal, always say it's that time universal, not your local time, because it doesn't really help if you use local time. And of course, if you want to know local time, there's a very easy way. You just type in Google, what is UTC? And it's going to actually tell you, yeah, this is the time in UTC right now. So you can actually Google it, which makes it easy. And if you got an assistant, you can ask, okay, whatever, and what is the time in UTC now? And it's going to answer back what it is. The other thing is so right now 6125 is in Spanish. Okay? I have only one transmission in Spanish that is in 6125 when I use EIBI space. It's Radio Marti. And it is actually stated that it's using right now 0204 UT. So we gotta pretty much know that it's Radio Marti. If I use shortwave.info, I will of course use the Find Stations Broadcasting On, and I will type the frequency range in there, 6125, and click the Now button. And it's actually pointing towards United States, 6125, because Radio Marti is a station in Greenville transmitter site. And it actually tells you, and the results at the bottom, Radio Marti is 6125. Now, in the case where there would be stations that have, it happens very often, you'll have stations that actually will show up with multiple choices on the same frequency. And that happens very often, that you're going to be shown multiple stations that are at this time on a specific frequency. How do you know which one you're listening to? There's a lot of stuff that can actually make you choose whatever you're listening to. An example is if you're looking at the map of where it's daylight and nighttime, and if you use short-wave.info, you will see that there is that map also. Remember that daytime frequencies are higher, lower frequencies are nighttime. So that might help you and decide what am I actually listening to. There are periods of times during the day where it's not as obvious where you might be listening to. Then the best that you can do, and your best friend actually, is understanding what language you're listening to. Understanding the language will help you identify a lot of what you have. So you've got 5 different stations on one frequency at the same time. You're listening to a signal in English. Yeah, well, you know what? Look at what's in English. There's a good chance that there's only one. It's that station. There's more than one. Tell yourself the question. What time is it? Is it daytime? Well, if you're listening to 4930 in English in daytime, it has to be very local because you can't hear anything there. If you're listening to 15730, 19 meter band, you know that you can be listening to an English station at a very low frequency. It's the middle of the day. So it must be the 15 megahertz one that comes from wherever, it comes from daytime or nighttime. If you are listening to a frequency that's 15730, like I just mentioned, you have a station that is totally in nighttime on that frequency, one totally in the daytime on that frequency. Chances are is the one in the daytime that you're hearing, not the one in the nighttime, because nighttime might not propagate 15730. So I know it's complex because it's a lesson over time that you understand that higher frequencies are day, lower frequencies are night. But it's with experience, understanding what language. You know what? Language is not always easy. It's easy for the basic languages. Like, for example, I can easily make a difference between, so I'm, bilingual. So, of course, English and French are easy for me. But then you have Spanish, Portuguese, and all sorts of other languages. Understanding or being able to identify what it might be is important. So, for example, I don't speak Spanish really, but I do make a big difference between Spanish and Portuguese. It doesn't sound the same. For example, listen to 6125 now in Spanish and go back up to 11780 to Radio Nacional do Brasil or Radio Nacional Amazonas. You'll notice that it doesn't sound the same. Same thing. Things that are sometimes similar, but, Japanese, Chinese, they're kind of easy to differentiate. I can actually know when it's Japanese and when it's Chinese. It doesn't sound the same. So brushing up on not necessarily understanding the language, but at least knowing what it is, that language that is broadcast, will help you a lot in identifying. And remember, daytime, if you're listening to a signal in the daytime in a high frequency, it can be coming from a place where it's dark most of the time. There are exceptions to the rule, and especially when you're gray line DXing, it's not always obvious. That's where language is probably going to help you a lot more than understanding what frequency, what station you are on a specific frequency you're listening to. But brush up by searching signals and trying to, check out what UTC time, what's on that. A lot of frequencies will give you only one, but on the ones that give you 2, 3, 4 choices, choose the language option. What language is it? Could it be whatever language? Okay, it might help you. And if the language doesn't help, because it might be, if you have 3 different African languages, for example, it might not be that easy. Then, of course, there's target audience. One of the things you see when you look at these schedules is that it's directing their broadcast to specific areas. So, for example, if it says in the EIBI space, for example, you'll see things like, let me just give an example here. So SEA is Southeast Asia, or NAF or WAF, North Africa, West Africa. Knowing a little bit where these are and how the direction of the signal might be actually going towards your direction. These are all little things that help from time to time. That's where it gets complex, but it's taking the time to kind of grasp all of that data. I've been doing it for 37 years, so I kind of grasp a lot of that. And I know that for a newcomer to the hobby, it's kind of a tough one sometimes. But, listen to signals, go on these websites, and slowly kind of get the grasp of what you're listening to and different times of day, what frequencies you might be hearing. Because there's a lot of mistakes. I see a lot of people posting, I'm hearing this right now on that frequency. And you're like, no, it's impossible. You can't be hearing that because it would have to cross daytime or it would have to cross nighttime, depending on high or low frequencies. So it's a question of experience over time, for sure. What else? Robert Prosper says, as a kid, I loved reading those tiny ads on the back of those magazines. VU2KOC. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Prakash. Nice to have you here. Yeah, XH Data. It took me a little time simply for my XH Data D808. It wasn't available at a decent price for a while until eventually it did. So, Radioactive's receiving China Radio on 7370. Cool. Zachary Antol, nice to have you here. Rain and wind. This is pretty much what is resuming our weather right now. We had some warm temperatures tonight. This week. We had temperatures that actually reached 50s Fahrenheit. So the snow all melted. Brian Walterheimer, nice to have you here, my friend. Pretty cool. Radioactive at 6125 loud in Oregon. Cool. David says, my watch has dual time setting. Keep mine in UTC. Cool. 0145 Zulu. Matt says, several of my receivers include clock functions, and I have them set to UTC. But the knowledge that Denver is UTC -7 in winter and -6 in summer is hardwired thanks to my time geekness as a kid. Yeah, it is for me too. I mean, I now totally understand, that it's -5. Montreal is -5, or Eastern time zone is -5 in the winter, -4 in the summer. That's from experience in our own geekiness of the shortwave hobby. Take care of Jerry DX. But, it's, for a lot of people, it's not obvious. It's not obvious what UTC time it is. So a lot of you are actually on 6125. Take care, Terry Cook. Happy Thanksgiving. Gustavo Pinto. Welcome, my friend. Nice to have you here. Really nice to have you on board. As usual. Gonna try to get the map back. So, can you add a VGA port to SDR-based radios with LCD screens? There are radios that can be, but not all of them can. Really, not all of them can, actually. CRI in English on 6180. Let's check it out here. 6180. This one is from Cuba Transmitter. It's actually extremely strong here. 6180 is very, very strong here. And that's from Cuba. David says, we had a rainy morning in Georgia, but the sun came out and we went up to 73. Wow. Cool. Zachary Antle, Canadian Thanksgiving was last month. Our Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. So, we are now in our high gear for everything Christmas now. Pretty much. So, that's where we are at this time. So, let me just check out here. Yep, we always have our Thanksgiving a month before the exactly like Matt says. Our Thanksgiving is always matched with Columbus Day in the United States. Totally. And here we go. Let's just check it out here if everything is all right. And so, hey guys, what do we have here? WRMI finally received a WRMI QSL. Robert Page, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's check it out here. So, this is Robert Page WRMI QSL. Oops. Here we go. Pretty nice. I have one with the Okeechobee transmitter and like it looks like background thunderstorms personally. So that's cool. So hey guys, we've been on for 2 hours. I will actually sign off for tonight. We will be back on Friday. Hope you enjoyed. The show, and remember that we are twice a week on the live show. And it's Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 0 UT. And Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and 0 UT, 20 UT, sorry. Thanks for those that donate. Hope you guys enjoy the show, even though it was just about 2 hours. A little tired. We'll take it easy for the rest of the night. Doing a little bit more radio. Remember, there's a Facebook page. Facebook page is the same name as the YouTube channel, official SWL channel. And you can actually join in and have fun. It's an extension to the live shows. It's where you can actually continue posting about radios and talking about radios and posting pictures of your radios and whatever you're listening to, and hope that you have fun. We've got a little kind of a little contest this week. Try to log 10 different countries. So why not do that little contest and post your 10 different countries that you actually are listening to. You can actually post the 10 different countries. Remember, no FT8, FT4, and so on. And basically, it's a lot of fun. And we'll discuss what people have been hearing on Friday. So next show, this coming Friday, November 29th. Last show of November. We'll be in December next week. Pretty crazy. Christmas, snow, and December. So take care, my friends. Hey, Randy in Riverside, California. Nice to have you here. Take care, my friends. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Stay safe. And see you Friday at 20 UTC. Good night, everybody. Love you all. Stay safe. And see you soon. Bye-bye.